All right, here we are in Finney Helps, where we do life optimization through frameworks and community connection. And I'm here doing community connection here with my good friend, Chet Gaines.
Hello.
Hey, Chet, it's good to see you again. It's been too long.
Right? Yeah. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So last time we were together, we talked about the Free Will Project, and that was a lot of fun. And so for those who want to check that out, they can check that out on YouTube on the Finney Helps world, as well as Chet's world, right? YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just look for my name on there or if you search Free Will Project, it'll probably pop up.
Right. Yeah. Chet Gaines, Gaines.
Awesome.
First
Yeah.
name, Chet, Chet. But yeah. So what Chet and I did, so we checked out this book that you can see right now. It's called Transcend, The New Science of Self-Actualization by Scott. And that's all I can ever remember. It's like, oh, Scott Barry Kaufman. All right, Scott. Because Corey, an hour and a half ago on the Finney Helps world, said, who wrote that? I think I know that. And I'm like, Scott.
My buddy Scott.
My buddy
You know
Scott.
Scott.
Well, and what's really funny is in real life, I have a friend called Scott Barry. That's his first and last name.
Oh, well, that's not confusing at all.
No, yeah, not at all. But yeah, so what we have in mind is we're going to go over, some surprising things that we ran across, some fun facts, and maybe some, big picture takeaways, that kind of a deal. But just kind of go over some bullet point items. Won't be able to cover it all because there's just so much in this book. But yeah. So, offline, you and I talked about, I think what was probably our first surprise. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And that was like, well, wait a minute. So Maslow's hierarchy, that pyramid. So we're going to hear all about the pyramid and how Maslow made it, right? And what did we find out? Like, tell us about this pyramid where we have self-actualization, esteem, love and belonging, safety needs, and physiological needs.
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding was my recollection is that it was more like a product of like sort of management marketing that
Right.
Maslow never really arranged this concept into a pyramid, and that happened later on in materials that he didn't write, which I mean it's attractive and whatnot, but
Right.
yeah, it can also be a little misleading, because he talked about like not only working your way up, but like the need to like maintain all the different levels and how they connect with each other. I don't. He had a much more holistic concept in mind, and a lot of
Right.
people look at a pyramid and they just think about climbing up it,
Right.
and so yeah, it's a little bit misleading.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up because, yeah, I remember that from the book too, but didn't remember it until now. Is that, yeah, I mean, when I first came across this, I was like, oh, it makes sense. Once I have my physiological needs, I'm never looking back, right? I just keep going up. It's like, no, that's not true at all. I mean, it's just like you wake up, okay, sleep, that's a need daily. You're going to make sure you get your food. So it's like, oh, if I don't have these things daily, well, then I'm not going to get any of this other, it's all supportive, right? Which actually takes me back to, I don't remember where it was from, but I read this where it was like, like looking at the physiological needs and then like looking at the love and belonging. There's a kind of a quote that said, nobody wants to kiss when you're hungry.
Damn.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's pretty
That's harsh.
memorable. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, you definitely need your basic physiological, but it actually might've been from a psychology book. But like you get this stuff and you're like, okay, now it empowers the ability to even have a chance at some of this other stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm good. I understand all psychology, humanistic psychology. All right, done, right? And I did my Psych 101 and felt like I knew everything. I did not.
That's
And
not
then
enough? I
that's
mean,
not
I would think you'd have it mastered after that.
fun fact. I did get a minors in psychology, but yeah, you can't get a minor
Hey,
from just taking one class. Who knew?
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so this book, it actually like said, no, 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 no. Uh, if you want to think about this stuff, why not think about it in terms of more of like a sailboat? So here, like we have at the bottom, the basic security that just absolutely has to be there. So same kind of concept. And we see self-esteem, connection, and safety. And then if we have that, if there's no holes in that, as Scott put it, right? Because he's like, if you got a leaky boat, this whole thing goes down.
And that's true. That's true.
It
No one wants to
absolutely
kiss
is.
when they're hungry.
Yeah, yeah. No kissing if you're hungry. So then we have at the top we got purpose, love, and exploration. And I honestly don't remember if like I think purpose, love, and exploration. I think they might be on even par with each other. I don't remember for sure, but it's not that important. Like basically, if you have the basic needs, you have a chance to explore your world and have an exploration of purpose in your life, and then have love.
Mhm.
So apparently, and the different forms of love, right? Because you've got like there was actually a company, not the current company I'm at now, but I actually had a company take us all out on a field trip thing where it's like, okay, so now we're going to go on a seminar or whatever you want to call it, a presentation on love. I'm like, what?
All right.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm getting paid for this. Yeah, this is pretty awesome. So this is back in the, when there was a lot more money available in the companies, but in certain technological companies.
That was back when the basic needs were met.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you can talk about the higher end of things.
Yeah. Yeah. But like there's a differentiation between like philos, the brotherhood, sisterhood kind of love, and like I think it's agape where you'd have the romantic love, right, the passionate love and things of that
Yeah.
nature, and so on. So yeah, all the different kinds of love there. Oh man, but yeah, so getting back, so the book kind of starts with the basic security part, right? If memory serves, it even has like the different parts. So
Yeah,
part
that
one, two, and so on.
part one was kind of the basic stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, like, I don't want to hog the lead off, so to speak, but like at some point, I'm going to talk about connection because it just blew my mind what I learned in there. But I didn't know if you wanted to jump into connection or if you had another one that you wanted to jump into first.
Oh, that's fine. Let's go ahead.
Mm. All right. So yeah. As far as connection, I was like, oh, this will be interesting. This will be like social stuff, right? And like, because I was still tainted. Let me go back to the pyramid. Oh, that's not a pyramid. Wrong keystroke there. There we go. I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be talking about this kind of stuff, right? The family and relationships, and no, we're going to talk about how loneliness kills. I was like, whoa, okay.
Kind of getting into and I noticed that in like a lot of the chapters he would not only talk about like the positive version of the theme of the chapter, but he would also talk about like what's the dark side, like what happens when
Right.
you lack these things. And yeah, loneliness contributes to all kinds of diseases. It's I forget all the stats on it, but it's amazing if you look at what loneliness does to a body.
Right.
It's terrible for you. It's we are just a social species, and
Right.
so when we get split up with each other, sometimes people get older and lose connections, or they end up spending a lot of
Right.
time in their house. It makes you really susceptible to a lot of problems.
Yeah, hypothetically, if there was a pandemic and people
Yeah,
are in their
yeah,
house.
just hypothetically. Yeah, no,
Right,
it's a problem. And
right.
yeah, yeah, he definitely explored kind of the dark side of like, what it means to lack connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I dove deep in on this. Like to your point about the statistics or the numbers, so to speak. So basically, like he had mentioned that social isolation is like comparable to smoking,
Right?
high blood pressure. It it impairs the immune functioning, like the immune system functioning well. Said something about something swelling. I don't know what it was, but apparently it's bad.
You don't want stuff to swell.
Some things that are not meant to swell. Now this is rated G, so I'm not going to go, into any other kinds of. But moving on. So I have a great filter. So yeah, it could lead to heart disease, diabetes if you're like socially isolated. So here's a number. You have a 29% higher risk of coronary heart disease and a 32% higher risk of a stroke. And this is compared to those people, as they call it, the control group, right? Because they actually this is all backed on scientific studies on this, compared to the control group that had a strong social network, right? Which I say, and I could be wrong, I don't have the science to back this up, but I would have to think that I think you can have a social network virtually like this.
Right?
Like like when I'm talking with you, Chet, I actually have real positive feelings towards this person, even though we've never met IRL in real life. Um,
Because this
right.
isn't real. This isn't real life. This is a fan. Just like to follow a tangent, that's called the digital dualism, where you split the world in between like real life and the fantasy of the internet, and
Okay.
there's like philosophical work on that, and it's
So
it's
Twitter.
yeah, yeah, there you go. It's kind of a misleading way to speak, because it makes people think that like Twitter isn't real or something like that, and it's like
Right.
actually that's a lot of real people interacting with each other. Like it is real in
Yes.
some sense, but
Yes.
yeah,
It,
I don't know.
it's
That's a tangent.
real. Well, yeah, but it's a related tangent. I mean, because part of this whole Finney helps and life optimization thing, it's we do kind of want to tie it into, what's going on now and how people feel about things and such. And yeah, there was an acquaintance of mine that I would hook up with on Twitter once in now and then, and it's just say Twitter's not real life. Like now, that's what I would say to try to keep it simple, so that the person would get off of their. I don't know how I would describe it, but basically, the person was acting as if they were fighting off all the monsters of society with a sword.
Well, I mean, it becomes like a video game or something. Like it's yeah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it was just insane. And so it was just like, okay, just like the book Ready Player One, which I also highly recommend a person listen to on Audible. It's a fantastic book. Um, People will show you what they want to show you on things like Twitter or someday virtual reality
right.
and other virtual worlds like Minecraft. That kind of a deal. So yeah, a person could definitely have a social network. I think your mileage may vary depending upon what's involved there.
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely something I learned, a phrase I learned, even especially where I work. But what's interesting is I've found out on this is that Zoom actually has inherent in it a little bit of increased stress.
Mm,
So technological issues aside, if there's a sense of delay,
yeah.
right? where it's like I say something, but then you don't hear it until a little bit later, or vice versa. That apparently is inherently stressful. So I found that interesting. So yeah. So things to keep in mind in terms of this connection thing, where it's like, yeah, have a strong social network, but at the same time also recognize that we're in interesting times, and so bear that in mind. We're all humans here.
Right, right. Cut yourself a break.
Exactly. Oh, so yeah, and as far as like safety and self-esteem, I didn't dive into it much at all in terms of that, because I was like, okay, connection, that's really awesome. It was like safety. Yeah, definitely need to make sure that we're not going to have someone tear down my door.
Right,
So have
right.
your martial arts ready, or whatever it is that you use.
Well, and also, like we were talking a little bit before we started the stream here about defensiveness, and
Right.
uh,
Okay.
it's it's really hard to be open and to hear where people are like really coming from if you're concerned about your own safety, and you put your defenses
Right.
up because you're worried about like being attacked or something like that. And so like creating that sense of safety for yourself, um, to avoid those defense mechanisms,
Right.
it's a very important thing, and something I struggle with all the time.
Sure. Yeah. There's actually a meditation mindfulness thing that I've been
Mm,
applying. So I I'll say it this way. I used to teach meditation. It's because I'm not currently taking on any active students right now, although it keeps slipping in every so often. But one thing that I've used for like public speaking and such is that a person can observe that, and we talked about this in the Free Will Project earlier video, where it's like that sense of being a person, and I is a feeling. You could observe that feeling and go, okay, I'm just going to let that thing sit there. I'm not going to let it get in my way. I'm going to gear my mind more towards how can I serve you, my friend Chet, or the people that are watching this, and tap into that evolution wiring where it's like, I want to help the tribe. And in this case, my tribe is the world, humanity
right.
plus. And but by the fact that a person is thinking about how can I help others and recognize them as part of my extended family, that makes everything fall away in terms of
Mhm.
the kind of like defensiveness. And um, it's like Scott says, if you can get rid of that defensiveness, then you can be more real,
Right,
right? More
right.
authentic in a positive way.
Yeah, and more in the moment rather than you know caught in your own thoughts, your own concerns.
Yeah, that reminds me. He was, you touched on earlier that he doesn't just talk about making me think about Star Wars, the the light side of things and the dark side of things.
Sure, sure.
um, he doesn't just talk about like authenticness, the positive form of authenticness. He calls it be authentic, which stands for, I believe, be, or being authentic, as opposed to, what was the D one again?
Deficiency.
Deficiency.
I think that was it.
Yeah, yeah, something bad. The bad kind. So there's a good kind of authenticness where it's like I'm really sharing who I am and such. And then there's like the D, the bad authenticness. And that would be like if you share every single thing that's on your mind.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
I
stuff.
remember
Yeah.
a line in the book somewhere where he's like, "No one wants to hear all that."
Yes,
Like
exactly. Yeah, that
literally, no one wants to hear every thought you have.
yeah, a total stream of consciousness and subconsciousness where it's like blah 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 blah.
That's too authentic.
It's too much.
Real in that authenticness, that
Yeah.
authenticity.
So I'm gonna say it wrong, but in Buddhism, whether you're talking about secular Buddhism or non-secular Buddhism, there's a Pali word, Pali being a language, for just doing blah 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 blah, but like not adding anything to a conversation, or it surrounds this phrase of right talk or
Yeah.
right speech kind of a deal, right? And I want to say that I'm gonna get it wrong, but that's okay. Panapalapalapalers. Okay, I can't say it. Like basically, you're just going blah 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 blah, right? Um, and so like that's the bad form of being authentic. But like as far as like the good form of being authentic, it's like, okay, you're going to apply a healthy filter. You're going to listen as well as talk, right? And stuff like that. Which that reminds me. All right, this is not meant to be a quiz, but this is totally going to sound like a quiz. All right, actually, it's a quiz. So, what famous
Are you
humanist?
quizzing me because I'm worried?
No, this is just a fun thing. Like, do you happen to recall some of the big names, psychologist-wise, that he refers to in the book? Because, like,
That
okay,
he
clearly, I mean,
refers.
there's one for sure that we all know. We said it.
Sure, sure. I imagine Maslow
Yep,
is the
there's
subject
one.
of the book, so it's good that we got that one down. Um, yeah, I don't know. I
But
remember Carl Rogers was mentioned.
awesome.
Um, yeah, off the top of my head,
That
like
that alone is impressive.
Ruth Benedict was mentioned, who's anthropologist,
Awesome.
not a psychologist, but yeah.
That's why I didn't remember. Nice job.
Eric Fromm. Uh,
Wow.
I don't know. If I gave it a few more minutes, I could pull some more names out of my head, but
Like you've already gone far beyond than so like in my notes.
hey, notes are good.
I've got, is that cheating? Yeah, it might be cheating. I've got Rollo May.
Okay.
So like when I was doing psychology way back when, I was like, humanistic psychology, which has been it's been branded as positive psychology, I think, but
Hmm.
like that's not really saying the whole picture, right? Um, it's more of the whole humanistic Maslow self-actualization kind of a psychology. So like the big names for me at that time were like Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers with his Rogerian theory, the listening deeply kind of thing, Rollo May, and one that's not under my notes, but pretty sure this one's right, Aaron Beck. Uh,
Hmm.
that person's name came up often as well. And so, yeah, this book is a culmination of not just Abraham Maslow. I mean, it's huge on that, but he's to your point, he's pulling in stuff left and right.
Yeah, he's definitely a very like holistic thinker. I think he mentions like systems thinking in the book a
Right.
couple times, and yeah, you can tell
Yes.
it's very like even within psychology, you can tell he's taking like he's pulling from a lot of different areas and kind of constructing something that's bigger than any one of those areas. So I
But
really appreciate that sort of process.
yeah, yeah, I do too. Like to your point about systems thinking, talking about systems. Yeah, he first introduces it as cybernetics.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait a minute, that's Terminator, right? I mean, that's the robot. No, it's not. I think that
Yeah.
might be more cyborgish or something. But yeah, so cybernetics, what that's all about is, I know you know this, but for those that are watching this, humans are goal directed systems. So basically, we have conscious and unconscious goals, and like we do something, it affects the environment, and the environment affects us, and it's a closed loop system kind of a thing. It's on Wikipedia, so if you want to look up cybernetics, it has all the words, all the great words. Yeah, I totally tainted the conversation with that. Someday when we have an actual video editor or such, just like delete that part, but not today. But yeah, and that also was under the heading of like 7 principles, which we could talk about later. But in terms of like the book part, yeah. So I'm like now mentally in this growth area,
Mhm.
um, and like what immediately leaped out. The guy I like to quote, and I admire that. But at first I was like, how am I going to tie this into anything? I'm like, oh, that's how later. But so he starts off with like a quote that's like, possibility is intoxicating. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
this is sounding cool and kind of romantic, like Renaissance thing, right? But it's like possibility is intoxicating. And humans, uh, we like to explore. We do want to seek out novel, new, unprecedented challenges and experiences. And so that's awesome. That's part of who we are. And it's funny, if I was talking about gamification and game theory related stuff, I'd talk about the 4 player types, and exploration is definitely one of them. That could be a whole other thing. So yeah, and then what's coupled with this exploration and taking in all this novelness and raw data, the brain has to at some point kind of filter in some stuff, but it can't let it all in or it'll get overwhelmed.
Right.
Now, apparently there's some drug trips and such that allow the filtering to get dropped. I don't know, but apparently that's a thing. So if it's for those who have had some of those experiences where it's legal and such, feel free to put comments in the YouTube comments. This will be going out to YouTube, but only the legal ones, please. I don't want you in trouble. um, but on that note, with the meditation thing, a person can actually also have that same kind of experience where it's like you can drop that filter some, maybe all the way, in the sense of it's called stream entry. And
Hmm.
so it's like actually a stage in meditation where it's, mindfulness meditation, where it's like, I've gotten to the point where I'm just taking in all the sensory input, sight, sound, everything as just the raw data. And then it's hard to describe. I've actually experienced it myself. And this one thing that I definitely want to share with you and all, and I probably should share this more often, is, you know, things like drugs or meditation or whatever, those are keys that can unlock the experiences, but we own the locks.
Mhm.
And so that became quite clear to me. It was like, yeah, if I do meditation well, so to speak, I can unlock this lock. And it's powerful stuff. So remember, you own the locks. You have a lot of power that you don't even know about.
Yeah, I think in it was chapter 7 was a really fun chapter because it touched on some of this stuff. And uh there was a description of a person who did a lot of these guided trips and things like that, and they were talking about this experience they had where they you know had like this dread that they were
Right.
going to like die. I think it was following some kind of what they were like outside of a conference or something. I'm forgetting this story now, but
Mhm.
they had had this kind of like mystical experience, and
Right.
then following that, they were like boarding a plane, and all of a sudden they were filled with
Right.
this notion of dread that they were going to die, like something was going to go wrong with the plane, and they just kind of resigned themselves to it.
Yeah.
And
Instead of
even
fighting it.
yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah.
even that itself was like apparently some kind of like enlightening experience for them, that they didn't struggle against it. They just accepted it, and then
Right.
it didn't happen. And what like there was some other there was a story where that Maslow related about a health problem he had had, and
Right.
he had kind of accepted his own mortality, and then it turned out he continued to live afterwards. And so he was like at that point is kind of what was it he was calling it his post-mortem life or something, which is fun. So yeah,
Right.
there's these really I don't know, really I guess maybe rare experiences that people have that a lot of times we tend to dismiss as like some sort of like supernatural quackery or something like that, but
Sure.
they're real brain states that real people go
Yeah.
through, and they learn things from them. And it's worth like acknowledging those experiences and seeing what there is to take away from them, because I
Right.
think, if you are living your life as if you're as if you're living on borrowed time or something like that, I mean, you're
Right.
probably paying a little more attention. You're probably more in the B realm,
Yes.
as the book says. So yeah, I don't know. I found chapter 7 to be a lot of fun. Uh,
Yes.
I feel like he put that towards the end because you don't want to start with that kind of stuff. Like uh
Right. Yeah.
because people might get confused what the message is,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Start.
that stuff's
Start.
important.
Start them off by clarifying and saying Maslow did not make the pyramid.
Yeah,
Right. A little bit of
yeah.
cleanup there, and then talk about how loneliness kills. But then, yeah, finally get to the point of, like, to your point, talking about
People
transcenders.
transcending death and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's funny because, like, when he talks about that, and this kind of there's a part in the book where it says, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but it's like if you want to transcend self-actualization, go beyond self-actualization, one of the key things that you want to do is just to really keep in mind the fact that we are mortal.
Hmm.
And again, Buddhism does that, where it's like, okay, well, daily, just say, hey, I'm mortal. And that's also an invitation to do a gratitude exercise, where it's like, I'm grateful to be alive now, and I'm grateful to have the connections that I have, and things like that. But yeah, I try to do that daily. And yeah, as mentioned uh, in the book, there's this part 3. It's called Healthy Transcendence, and he talks about the Transcenders, which sounds like a band, right? It's like Jimmy and the Transcenders, like, like no.
Yeah, did they have that hit song in like the late 80s? Like, I don't
Yeah, right.
know.
Exactly. Um, but by the way, Chet not only is a super smart, uh, reads a whole lot, also has great taste in music, shares all kinds of music with his friends. So I appreciate that, Chet.
I I feel like I share a lot of depressing stuff, so you gotta break it up. You gotta
Yeah, absolutely.
you gotta
Have a
you
healthy
gotta
dose.
yeah, share some nice things sometimes.
Yeah,
Share some kittens.
that's right. Yeah, there's a lot of kittens out there on the internet because we
Yeah,
have not we haven't seen them all, as you said
somet
last time we met.
sometimes it's worth looking up some kittens.
Exactly. But yeah, just literally referring to my notes here under transcenders. So it's like, as mentioned, it's like getting past. God, I think I have a pyramid addiction because, like, I want to go back to this thing. It's like, because it's so much more familiar to me, but it's like to like with self-actualization and all these other things, there's a lot of focus on the me, right? Like, yes, there's love and
Right.
belonging and such, but this thing is all pretty much me, me, me. What are my physiological needs, my safety, my love with others, my
Right.
self-esteem, my self-actualization, be all that you can be,
And then that's
which
the end of the pyramid. Nothing
that's the
else.
end. And that's actually, it's funny because be all you could be was introduced to me. I'm like, God, that's a great phrase. It's like, join the army? Well, wait a minute. Okay, I guess. Cool.
Is
I should
that
look into that.
is that what does that follow? Is that I think that's a non sequitur. I don't know, maybe.
So that was like there was a commercial.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, be all that you can be. Yeah, yeah. And it's like, in the army. I was like, all right, well, if that works for you, that's awesome. I was like, I don't think I'm called to join the army, but
Right.
I could be wrong. But I actually, some other time we should have that conversation because I called a recruiter.
Oh
Or no,
wow.
they called me. I don't know. I visited a table, right? And once they got your number, they're gonna call you. Which that's fair. My friend and neighbor is a recruiter. He's an awesome person. Had a great conversation with them, and it was just like, well, I'm thinking about being a religious leader. I don't know how this is gonna fit in. And he's like, we have a great spot. Like no matter what I brought up, we have a spot
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. You
Like you
could be
could be
like,
all you could be.
you'd be like, I think I'm thinking about becoming a hermit. And they're like, we have a great hermit program for you.
Yeah,
We'll plug you in with the other hermits. Like
we'll
we'll
station
put you
you here in
in
Timbuktu,
the middle of
whatever.
nowhere. We got you covered, and we'll pay for your college.
Yeah. So I
No,
won't.
I
I started talking about sexual orientation with them, and then that's when he finally. But that was way back when. Now
I I have
they've modernized.
a quick PG recruiter story. I was
Okay.
in college. I was at a party one evening at a friend's house, and I'd had a quite a bit of ethanol intake, and
Isn't
uh,
that
yeah,
called
so
moonshine?
I had stayed the night over there, being responsible and safe. And I was
Good.
walking across campus hungover the next morning, like
Right.
staggering through a parking lot, and a recruiter decides that's the moment. That's the moment to hit me up. A random guy out of nowhere just tries to recruit me into the military. And I'm like
Pretty
unshaved
awkward.
and still kind of drunk and like
Yeah. Hey,
and
buddy,
yeah,
want to join?
I must have looked vulnerable or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's my recruiter story. I was like, there's
That's
no
awesome.
way I look like military material staggering through this parking lot at like 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday or whatever.
Well, it's funny. Like I've listened to. I mean, I've got relatives that are in the military too, and if a person's ever looking for structure,
Well,
they'll give you structure,
there
right?
you go. Maybe that's what he saw in me, a lack of structure.
And that's tying it back to the book here. It's like that's why I'm glad that Scott, my buddy Scott, that he doesn't know me, but anyway, actually said, here's a structure, right? Here's a framework. Excuse me. Um, and I'm like, okay, this is fantastic because it actually, pictures 1,000 words.
Right?
And then, he couples it with like these notions of like, yeah, you have self-actualizers, but then you have people that are transcending. I guess this is top up here, right? It's like, oh,
There you
you
go.
are transcending the self-actualization thing. So, like, not only are you making sure that all your needs, etc., are met, and even your self-actualization, but you you get involved in what he calls meta motivated or meta needs,
Mhm.
and it's like higher ideals and values beyond the basics, and what you can get out of that. Like this comes back to our first conversation. Was like, well, transcending what's in it for me, which part of me wants to say, if you have to ask, you're probably not quite there yet. But,
Right, right.
but,
It is kind of defeating the purpose.
but, you know, in order to convey the idea, just like any idea, we need to sell the idea. It's kind of like super transcendence, right? We want to give you super transcendence.
Right.
So it's like, if you're on this journey of wholeness plus and you're transcending, it can actually change your view of yourself and of the world, and it can like enable more creativity and all kinds of awesome things. And I'm going to pull this right from the book and just share some of the values that he shared: uh, truth, beauty, justice, which is a big thing these days. That's good. Meaningfulness, playfulness, aliveness. I'm like, yeah, and more. Even I'll slip one more in, because wholeness,
Right.
WHOLENESS, that's actually something that's been core to my being for decades, for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, I even looked up the Norse. There's a symbol in Nordic mythology. It's like it's kind of looks like a lightning bolt, but it's supposed to be a path.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super cool. Uh, People can go look it up. It's Sowelu, Sowelu, and then yeah, you're probably gonna run into some woo woo stuff or whatever, you know, because some people they take certain ideas, and that's fine, whatever works for them. Uh, but in any case, yeah, wholeness, it's a path. You know, it's tied to the power of the sun, positivity. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take this mythology and take the good stuff out of it. That's awesome.
Sure, sure.
You know, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So, and
I just
then I'll
I just
enjoy the
wanted
movies about Odin. But yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention I so part of what I pulled out of like the concept of transcendence
Yeah.
um was that Maslow was working on something that was more than just like a psychology that addresses like the individual. He was really
Right.
he was engaged in like a revolutionary project,
Right.
talking about how to remake the way we relate to each other and the world, how we can build each other, and that's kind of what the transcendence aspect meant to me, was that um, you start seeing yourself as part of the larger systems that you're embedded within, and that
Right.
you're you realize your needs are interdependent with the needs of others. And so like if you're going to receive your own fulfillment, all of a sudden your project becomes, everyone around you, it becomes society, it
Right.
becomes, the planet, et cetera, et cetera. Like you uh so yeah, to me that was like there's this limit you can hit with what you can do with yourself before you have to actually like
Right.
start thinking outside of yourself and start thinking of yourself within the context of everything else, and realize that those are all like the same thing. And that was like what I really pulled out of like the end of the book, and that um, Maslow was working on this very very large comprehensive project. And you know apparently our buddy Scott is continuing that work. Because
Yeah.
it's like Maslow, there was a lot of discussion in the book about Maslow feeling this sense of urgency to try to get
Right.
his message out before he passed, and kind of a sense that like that didn't quite happen. And so instead of trying to get the message out himself, he was trying to kind of leave the work for other people to
Yeah.
pick up.
Leaving
And
notes. To
yeah,
your point, right? It's like,
yeah,
okay, no time to publish, and here we are at the end. And Scott's like, oh man, I'm reading the notes.
man, that was really, yeah. When you get towards the I didn't mean to jump all the way to the end of the book.
Nah,
or
it's a
I
fine.
don't mean to
We could jump around wherever
I
we
don't
want.
mean to spoil it for anyone, but there's like this really touching moment when
Right.
Scott's talking about going through Maslow's notes and
Yes.
like coming across like the very last things he wrote while he was alive, and
Right.
imagining like the scene where he knows when that was written and what happened following it, and it was really touching. Um
Right.
and Scott talked about how, like, in a way, Maslow was transcending his own limitations by communicating that all to him, Scott, in that moment.
Right.
And we're all trying to do this. We're all trying to kind of repair what we can and leave, you know, leave a better world than we received.
Yeah. Yeah. You've hit on a lot of good stuff there. But yeah, I mean, to your point, and we'll circle back to stuff, but to your point, spoiler alert, yeah, Maslow dies. I mean,
No, he was my
yeah,
favorite character, and then the author went and killed him off. That's crap.
I know.
That's good.
What's
This
up
is
with
like
that?
This is like Game of Thrones here.
Oh,
You
oh
get
man, Game
attached
of
to a guy,
Thrones.
and then they get rid of him. Like, I don't know. I'm. uh,
Understandably, there are some people that have requested a trigger alert for whenever Game of Thrones is mentioned because of 7 and 8.
oh,
I'm not
wow.
kidding. It's we don't talk about it at work, but
Oh man,
anyway,
that's hilarious. I
I
saw
still
I
enjoy it.
I saw something online where they were saying like it was like this cultural phenomenon that was like dominating everything, and then it just disappeared. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
yeah,
But
yeah. Talking about my go-to mentally was Monty Python. So it wasn't quite like Abraham Maslow, just like in Quest for the Holy Grail by Monty Python, where it's like he's writing and then just wrote "R," which like in Monty
that's
Python,
that's
they're
perfect.
reading they're reading the inscription. Do you know this? Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Okay, of course. It's like ah, they would write out Og. It's a
Right.
land of
Yeah, it doesn't make
Og.
any sense. uh
Oh, so funny. But yeah, and to your point about the applicability, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. I'm not making stuff up, but like he's like he's thinking about politics.
right.
Clearly he was thinking about business and not just thinking about it, but he applied it to what is known now as industrial psychology. He actually was a consultant in business, and it's like there's a story like uh, Maslow and his wife were looking for a place to stay, and at first, you know, my words, the hotel person seemed kind of haughty and just cold or off-putting or whatever, right? And his wife's like, I don't like it here. And then it's like once Maslow wrote his name down, because it's like, well, where else we're gonna go? It's late, etc. It's like, wait, you're the Abraham Maslow. I'm your biggest fan, and then all of a
Right.
sudden it's like warmed up, and well, maybe this guy's all right, maybe it's okay to stay here at this hotel. But yeah, and then they just like shared information. I don't remember if he actually got on the payroll, so to speak, of that hotel or not. I think he did, but then he definitely like uh, figured out that he would be able to write more uh, stuff that is in his head while working in business as opposed to the academia world.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm totally going to do this, and I'm going to apply this in the business world, right?
Hmm.
Which was just fantastic. But yeah, we are keeping this at PG, so I'm not going to like slip in any cuss words of like, oh my gosh, it's fan freaking tastic.
it was
So
it was
yeah,
a it was a fairly PG book. It was.
yeah, no, yeah, it's a totally PG. That was a G book. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if we dig into Scott Moore, we'll uncover more as opposed to what I have in mind right now, where it's like um, totally G rated kind of guy. And I'm sure
I'm
he's playful,
interested.
but
The book cover mentions that he has a podcast, and I had never heard of it before,
okay,
but
that's right.
I'm gonna check that out because he's an interesting character, and I think he's really interested in like some of the deeper questions, you know.
Yeah.
And so that, yeah, seems like I think it's called the Psychology Podcast.
Okay.
So
Good
that's like
name.
on my yeah, pretty simple straightforward. So that's like on my list of things to check out in the near future.
Awesome.
And
I'll
yeah,
check it out too.
I'm curious to see what else we learn about our friend Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's on a mission. Clearly,
Right,
right?
right.
All right, I got that down. Psychology podcast. But yeah, so circling back to the mission of his, part of his mission is to share, like how can people transcend, right?
Hmm.
That kind of a deal. So more knowledge that was shared was peak experiences versus plateau experiences. Uh, and so it's like peak experiences. Okay, they're great, right? You have the, as he puts it, ecstatic and momentary brief moments of, my mind is blown, but like that's not sustainable.
Right.
um, yeah, and I won't segue too much, but been there, tried that meditation world, not myself personally, but like there have been whole groups. So it's like, we're just going to try to be in peak experience all the time. It's draining.
Yeah, that's not a like like you said, not really sustainable. That's not.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's good, right? It's good
Yeah.
to kind of have like uh, a sort of, I don't know, maybe ideal in your mind, or a
Sure.
notion in your mind of like what's possible. But yeah, you're really gonna walk around like like
I
in a
would it,
state of
yeah,
ecstasy all
stay
day
like
long every day.
that.
Like
Just
it's,
yeah.
yeah, you're not gonna function very well.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, and actually it's funny because that's it's interesting because like with meditation, a person can get off the real path. So the real path of mindfulness meditation is like you can be content without being complacent, and you're not trying to chase the fireworks. Because if you try to chase that dragon, it will. Yes, you may get some initial rushes, but it will elude, and it's an unhealthy attachment.
Right.
There's yeah. Moving on from that, because we want to keep this PG, but trust me, there's been groups of people that have been trying to have peak experiences, like in the sexual realms, for example, continuously orgasmic, etc. So it's like
Right.
doesn't work well. So plateau. So he talks about plateau experiences, which are enduring. He even says cognitive, which I'm like, okay, I have to dive more into that. But there's a phrase, unitive consciousness. I'm like, okay, unitive consciousness. And there's a quote from the book. It's a simultaneous perception of the sacred and the ordinary.
Hmm.
And so it's like, it's miraculous, like the miracle of life, which I know that can be a cliche, but the miracle of life, but it's not like a burst, right? It's not the firework thing that we're just talking about.
Hmm.
And yeah, again, with like mindfulness, and shout out to Sharon Salzberg, because I learned this from her, or at least how to express this in the 10% Happier meditation app, where she's like, you can take what is like ordinary circumstances and sensation opportunities, or just like water, like a cup of water or whatever. And it's like, if you do mindfulness meditation enough, you can actually start seeing details. Like, remember when I talked earlier about the filter dropping?
Yeah, yeah.
Start seeing more and perceiving more, and then you're like, oh wow, this cup is cold. Like, now that I'm actually paying attention to this, and the water's there, And like when I drink it, it's like there's the sensations are like you can actually, it's just water. It's normal, but it's miraculous,
Right.
right? And then from a cognitive point of view, I mean, I guess you might say we're made up like 70% of water or something like that.
Sure.
And that's pretty mind-blowing, right? And then like they actually, as part of a meditation retreat, they've done this where it's like there's a natural spring at this one place, and it's like over time, it's a long retreat. They say, now that you've been here and you are 70% water, you are 70% of this spring, right?
Right.
It's like, it's not just a romantic notion that we're tied into nature and all that. You are,
Yeah.
you are 70% wet nature.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole notion that like we're we're all one, or we're all connected, or
Right.
those are often seen as like new age cliches or something like that. And it's
Right.
like these are actual like literal truths of science, that like we're
Right.
all connected through the physical and the chemical and the biological systems that we're all,
Right.
constructed through. And we're where would we all be without oxygen? Like,
Right.
yeah, civilization would be gone pretty quickly if somehow oxygen decided to disappear. And like
Yeah.
it's a lot of times and then this is especially I think uh like a Western disposition, that we tend to see things as
Right.
separate, distinct objects.
Is that
uh,
Plato's fault? That dualistic what is
like
it called? Plato
the
perspective?
Platonic forms or something. I don't know. I
Yeah, no, yeah, to your point, it was like, yeah, the form, which is like the abstract perfect
Yeah,
form or whatever they
yeah,
said,
like the
right?
the
And
abstract perfect chair, or
yeah,
of all chairs or something. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm my philosophy isn't as
sure.
well informed as it should be, but
Well,
but
I
I
think he
do
was just trying
know.
to go for a concept. It's like the abstract concept of a chair
Yeah,
versus the real chair. But it's just like, what do
right.
I call this thing?
But yeah, there's a I know that we have like a sort of cultural disposition to see things as divided and separate. And
Right.
we're uh, individualist to the point of like hyper individualism, where like we exaggerate
Yes.
the actual like differences between things. And
Yeah. To
yeah,
the point
yeah,
of politics.
phew.
Pull yourself up by your own
And
bootstraps, buddy.
right.
Be your own hero as
Never.
opposed to wait, we all depend on each other. But let's not get into
Yeah.
politics.
Yeah. Yeah, never mind that, if I live in a less healthy society, I'm less healthy for it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like, it's not even a
Yeah.
self-interested point of view, but
Yeah. That's 70%. Wait, Flint water? Is
yeah,
that the
that's
place that had water that was yellow and like almost not liquid or something?
yeah, that literally,
Oh
like,
God.
the children that live there now, some of them have, like, neurological damage from, like,
Right.
the faulty water systems that came from, cutting corners, and bureaucrats
Yeah.
making, like, wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And
And what
yeah.
goes around comes around. If you haven't caught on, we're all connected. So do the right
Yeah,
thing, people.
and that's I mean, that's really the difference between, just peeking at the notion of yourself and
Right.
doing best by yourself, and, transcending that, and realizing that we are all part of a single process. Um,
Yeah.
I like to call it monism, you know?
Nice.
Uh, yeah,
I don't get
and
it yet. I mean, mono meaning single. It's not just
yeah.
a slang for a disease.
Yeah, so yeah, you mentioned dualism, right?
Right,
Where people have this notion of the world where they kind of split it into two pieces, whether that be like
right,
matter and energy, or body and spirit, or something.
right.
And monism, or some people use the term
Oh,
non-dualism, and those things are pretty much the same thing.
yeah,
Is
non-dualism. That's a phrase I've heard the most often in the meditation world. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it's this notion that duality is kind of, a misleading, a false dichotomy, if you will, and really we're all part of like a singular process, and that's what empiricism teaches us, that we're all
right.
part of a singular ongoing process. But
Yeah,
the problem is we all have our own sets of eyes, and we all have our own nervous systems, and so we feel separate. um
yeah.
and
We've
that's
evolved. We've evolved with that.
Well, and
Right.
the reason I brought up the Western culture aspect of this is because it's not even a human universal that we perceive things that way.
Right.
It's reinforced by our culture that we exaggerate that perception of separateness. So
Yes.
there's plenty of cultures where things are not so separate, or objects are not so unrelated to each other, that it's much
Yeah.
easier in those thought systems to perceive wholeness, like you mentioned.
Right. Yeah. The meditation teacher, one of my favorites, um, a friend named Jeff. Last name's eluding me at the moment, which is sorry, Jeff. I don't know why your last
Jeff
name
the
is
meditation teacher.
Jeff, the meditation teacher.
It
He's
works.
he's on a book over there, but Dan Harris. I want to say Jeff Warren. Here, let's see if I can check it real quick.
Yeah, getting the book, da-da, da-da, da-da.
Getting the
Taking a
book.
look, da-da, da-da, da-da.
Oh,
That's a very calming scene behind you, by the way.
oh, good. Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, you got me.
Hey, that sounds promising.
It's Jeff Warren.
Warren, okay.
I don't know what I said earlier, but it's one of the books. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. But as Jeff would say, uh, we're a local expression of the universe, but
Sure.
we're still part of the universe.
Yeah.
And again, through transcendence, and I think one of the things I think that can help with that is, like, yes, the book mentions acknowledgement of mortality, but for me, it's meditation, mindfulness exercises, where it's like you can, to your point, you can be less concerned about protecting the local expression of this universe and be more of like, well, okay, yes, I do have to take care of me, but I also take care of the we. And if I have that broader perspective, then there's just less fear, and you
Mm-hmm.
can actually move towards growth, which is what this is all about. And it's just smart. I mean, it's like not only a beautiful thing, yeah, and so on, but it's just
This is smart stuff, guys.
you're limiting yourself, because like Jeff says, it's like if you try to protect yourself too much and you close yourself off from opportunities, it's like you're in a
Mm-hmm.
house, but then you're like, well, I'm not going to go into that room. So it's like, pretend your existence is a house, right? And there's certain areas of the house that you don't ever want to explore because it makes you feel uncomfortable. Well, then if you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to avoid uncomfortableness forever and not allowing yourself opportunities for manageable growth, you're going to be in a small little closet at some point saying, this is my world. This is my world.
And it's
So
probably not
yeah,
going to be comfortable, like ironically.
yeah,
You're-
yes,
um,
yeah.
I mean,
And the
that's
book
probably.
talks about that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's probably part of life is a little bit of discomfort, and
Yes.
yeah, that's another thing I struggle with, because I like comfort. It's nice,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. when it comes to like physical chores, so to speak, my imagination of what it involves is much worse than when I actually do it. I'm like, this wasn't so bad. Like, why? Like, example, it's like, oh God, it's cold. I have to get naked for how many seconds before I get in that shower? Yeah, I mean, clearly I'm going to shower, but maybe I should do this other thing first. Maybe I should. Oh no, get your butt in the shower.
You gotta
And
have
it's
like
like,
the exchange like inside of you, like the inner monologue, like talking yourself into it.
I don't know what it is, but like I bribe myself where it's just like, all right, after I get what I do, this is a good tip. This works. Is I create some hot tea, right?
Oh,
And then I'm like, all right, smell that tea. That's too hot to drink now. But when I come back, the tea bag or whatever would be totally steeped, right? It'll be rich. So we're talking
right.
about like 15 minutes. I don't know how long you shower, but 15 minutes of this. So I got some strong green tea here. And when I come back out, I can reheat it and it's just going to taste so good. So like, okay, deal. I can't have it early. No cheating.
Yeah, you have kind of a natural timer there. I like it.
Yeah, it's I'm bribing myself, which that's all right. That's okay.
Hey, well,
Whatever
whatever
it takes.
works. Yeah.
Oh man. So we've been talking for a while. We haven't even talked about the seven principles yet. But
Oh, well, now's a good time, I guess.
all right. There's and then the huge takeaways. I kind of I want to talk about some of those takeaways. We covered people aren't static, essentially, right? We're 70% water. We didn't talk about neuroplasticity, how the
Mhm.
brain can change. It's proven now. And so like certain like behaviors that a person is doing, even like personality. Do you recall how much of this do you recall in terms of like the personality and behavior patterns part of the book?
As far as like how flexible they are, or
Just basically, so I didn't even catch this the first time I went through the book. But the second time I went through the book, I'm like, oh, yeah, I do recall the neuroplasticity part, but a person's personality, like, yes, a person's going to initially definitely lean more towards like introvert or extrovert or whatever. But in terms of like behaviors and the expression of personality through those behaviors, through habitual action, you can change actually your personality over time.
oh, sure, sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's still certain personality traits that, I mean, those traits can change too. But I mean, yes, in order to change behavior though, and personality even, you have to be motivated. I like his example where it's like an introvert's like, I'm not highly motivated actually to go out there and talk to all these different people and
Right, right.
like I'm
I'm
here, I'm happy here with my book, which I can relate.
yeah, I myself am a pretty introverted person, and so
Right.
coming on here and doing something like this takes a little bit of effort.
It
Um,
does.
and
It does.
afterwards, I'm like, "Oh, wow, I need to recover." Like,
Yeah.
but,
And
but it's worth
recharge.
it, you know? If you
Yeah.
care about things, it's worth putting some energy and some effort into them. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like initially I described myself as an outgoing introvert or that kind of a deal. But yeah, whatever you do, you end up. Oh, and this he talks about this in the book too, where the mind is like made up of subcomponents, evolutionary subcomponents. And it's like whatever you use becomes stronger and can be activated quicker,
mhm,
and whatever you don't use, you don't use it or lose it, right? And
right?
this again ties in meditation where it's like you can you can actually feed fear, which is not a good idea. um, or you can feed other things like the connectedness we talked about, that kind of a stuff. And so
Inside of
it's,
all of us, there are two wolves.
yeah, that thing. Exactly.
Right. I mean,
Are you
yeah,
feeding?
it's a meme, but
It is.
it's true.
Does the meme actually have the fear wolf and the love wolf? Or
Something like that. I forget. I forget. It's supposed to be based on a Native American
yeah,
story. I don't know if it's actually true, so I didn't present it that way.
sure,
I
sure.
don't know the origin of that story.
But yeah, like to your point, it's the two wolves are fighting,
Right.
and the kid asks, "Well, which one's gonna win?" Do you know the answer?
As the one you feed.
The one you feed. So
Yeah.
yeah, and George Mumford, a meditation teacher on the 10% Happier Meditation app, he shares that story, and he says, "Yeah, are you feeding the fear wolf or the love wolf?" And that's a big deal when he's talking about love from him because, like, I mean, he totally gets and understands love, but he's a meditation teacher for like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. Like he was the meditation teacher for them,
Hmm.
and so then he's like, you would talk about the love of the game, and Dan Harris is like, do you actually like say love? Like you're in a game and it's competitive, and he's like, what do you tell them? He says, well, I could always tell them, don't hate, don't be a hater, right? Don't be hating. Like that's a quote. And he's like, because everyone gets that, right? Like,
Right.
you don't want to be a hater. That doesn't help anyone. So it's like love for the game, and then it's just don't hate. So I guess that's a way of connecting. So yeah, feeding that. But like another huge takeaway, a final one before we get into the principles is that basically the people that are self-actualized, they're
Sorry.
still
The
humans.
cat needed into the bedroom.
No, cat has needs. Um, but like people that are self-actualized and that they're going beyond self-actualization, transcending, they're still humans. They're still going to make mistakes. But the interesting part is that they've built up certain habits in their life that support, you know, more opportunities of success around the self-actualization and then beyond the transcendence. Oh, so yeah. Anything more to add there, or just the principles?
I'm gonna let my cat back out of the bedroom now. I'll
Yeah, go
need one
for it.
second. Yeah.
Cat has needs.
There you go, Shishi. The cat has needs.
Cat has needs.
we She's been apparently been experiencing a little bit of back pain,
Oh
and
no.
so the vet prescribed some pain medication for her, and man, it will just like put her out for the evening. And
Yeah.
she's still getting acclimated to it, but yeah, it's she's getting older kitty.
Yeah. As happens with all things. That it's
Right,
that
right.
mortality thing, right? Where it's like grateful doesn't have to be morbid. It's just like it's just a fact of life. We
Yeah,
born, we live, we die. It's all
and
part of the yeah.
and if you're not in denial of that,
Yeah.
um, I think it helps you appreciate every moment more,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also tied into that. It's um like if you got the ocean, you got the waves. Like the waves come and go. People, we live and we die, but like the ocean is there.
right.
It's with waves. They're connected to that ocean. They are part of that ocean. It's like us in the universe, and whatever we understand and don't understand. Because I won't claim to understand everything in the universe, but apparently
Whoa.
we're part of all of it. Yeah, no, it's a fact. All right,
No,
so
that
I have
was
a
lovely.
plan. Thank you. I have a plan. We're gonna wrap this up. We're near the tail end of this.
Sure, sure.
But my thought is I'll say each principle. There's 7 of them.
Oof.
7 of them. And then whatever thoughts, if there are any thoughts to add in terms of these principles, we can add some. And then maybe in a future conversation, we'll see. I'll just give a reply, disclaimers. If there's interest between us and or others for us to, we could dive deeper into these. We can even talk about applicability,
Sure.
like how to actually start going towards self-transcendence. We touched upon one, consider we're mortal, but like he talks a lot. It's like, and view the world from the perspective of a child, and you do this and this and this, and it's like, okay, he's just gone over like 10 different things, and it's like
Yeah,
that would be a whole other.
if you wanted it to be, the book could be a textbook. Like it could be a workbook full of, I mean, it has exercises in it if
it does.
if that's the way you're approaching it. So
it has a self-assessment.
It was definitely worth taking in twice. Like it was that good. So thank you for recommending it, by the way, because I had not heard of this book until you brought it up. So that definitely definitely benefited me.
It's my pleasure. I heard about it from a podcast.
Cool.
And
cool.
It's part of the whole connectedness thing. All right. So after I take a drink, let's begin the principles.
Yeah.
All right. Principle 1. Accept your whole self, not just your best self.
Yeah.
So like for me, that's when he was talking about being authentic and like the fact that we are malleable people, so to speak, right? And so what's really interesting is that like even in a single day, we're a different person, right?
Right.
I mean, the joke is pre-caffeinated people are usually not the same as post-caffeinated people.
Right.
If they have a habit of drinking caffeine. Like, we know this. So yeah, we have what we call our best selves. We're healthy, creative, growth motivated. And so we can achieve that kind of real authenticness.
Authenticity. Hey.
Authenticity.
I did that earlier too.
By dropping our social facades and defenses, like you had said.
Right.
And acceptance is not the same as liking. So that's interesting. It's like there might be parts of,
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's like I accept the reality that I am like this pre-caffeination, but that doesn't mean I necessarily like it or I prefer it.
Yeah. Well, and if you're, I mean, what's the alternative to, accepting it is kind of denying
self-hatred.
Yeah. Right. So like if you're aware and you recognize that that's a part of who you are, that's like a step towards adjusting that if that's something you want to adjust. So yeah, much better to recognize who you are rather than to tell yourself some other story.
That ties into comparing mind too, where it's like you can still be a go-getter and not beat yourself up with a mental cattle prod. All right. Principle 2, learn to trust your self-actualizing tendency. So apparently, fun fact, they've done research where when you're actually free of the fight or flight thing, right? Anxiety, guilt, fear, etc. People actually naturally tend towards the realization of their unique potential, but then even beyond that, towards, dare we say, a direction of goodness. Like
no, humans are evil. You can't trick me.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing. So, but in order to get there, and it's interesting, he mentions this. It's like, and we don't have time to get into all the ways to get there. So, I don't know when. We probably should have that conversation for sure. Where it's like, okay, so, huh?
Sometime in the near future.
and sometime in the near future, where it's like, I suppose, so people might not know this, but there's like therapy that is not necessarily trying to pull you out of a crisis. There's like actually exploration kind of therapy and feedback therapy and things of that nature. So Maslow actually says through therapy plus, like exploration of those different rooms of your existence, of your mind, right? And being willing to take a peek, you can grow and get past some of that fear. Although all that said, this goes back to nobody wants to kiss when they're hungry. So we definitely somehow, some way need to make sure people's basic needs are met through whatever means. So,
Right. I like
all
it.
right. Principle 3, become aware of your inner conflicts.
Hmm.
So we mentioned earlier, the mind is made up of subcomponents. And there's also like, I think it's pretty obvious where it's like, okay, like I have a goal, for example, of having this discussion with you and also sharing this with the world, because truly what goes around comes around, and it's my own journey in transcendence. But I also, on my agenda, amongst other things, want to explore becoming certified in a technical certification related to Amazon technologies.
Hmm.
Like that's on my radar. So it's like, they're both time intensive. What am I going to do? All right, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I've time boxed this. So everything is kosher, everything is good. So yeah, that's the if you become aware of the inner conflicts, then you can recognize that it's normal, it's natural. And actually, what's really cool about this that I learned is that apparently humans, compared to like animals and the animal species and all that, the humans have an unprecedented ability to actually be goal flexible,
Hmm.
as the book puts it, more than any other species now or ever. So we're novel in that sense in the
Yeah,
animal kingdom.
that makes a lot of sense, especially given our ability to, conceptualize and
Right.
prioritize. And yeah, we're
Scott's
much,
Scott's exam. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, I was just thinking we're much more complex on that level.
Yes. And like Scott's example, one of them is romantic love. It's like basically it has its highs and lows, and it's an introduction to insanity, apparently. So some positives and some shake your mind up moments. Oh, a fun fact, interesting fact. I did have in my notes here. I actually tweeted this out too on my Twitter. Finney can help is my Twitter username. On that note, if you want, what is your Twitter username?
Oh yeah. I am Utopian Taco.
Awesome.
Not sure why, but I am.
It's funny. I just do at Utopia, and then I'm like, I'm there. I didn't even recognize the. I don't even look at the rest. So it's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So on
Yeah.
Twitter, I shared this. According to the research, most people actually develop a diagnosable mental illness at some point in their lives.
Hmm.
Like legit. We just don't get therapy apparently.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And
So yeah.
I just for years now, I've thought uh that we should absolutely normalize therapy
Sure.
and normalize like everyone going to therapy. And like you said, like therapy isn't just for when you're, in a crisis. Because
Right.
like if you think about this is a terrible example because I don't remember the last time I went to a dentist. But if you're going to a
Understand.
dentist in the proper way, you don't just go whenever you have, a tooth that needs pulled. You go
Yeah.
there for regular maintenance as well, and you'd think
Right.
your psychological health would be similar. that uh,
Right.
we could all benefit from assistance, you know.
Yeah,
And
maintenance, mental
yeah,
maintenance.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Um, my first introduction to that concept was from Roger Malott and the book Stress Management for Professionals.
There you
And
go.
he said, he said, if he said ideally you could go to a therapist and just say I want to have one session. It's like you actually call the different therapist candidates, right? You say I just want one session. It's like some people won't do it. They want you for 6 months. He's like, no. What you're looking for is one session. You just want to have a feedback, kind of have a constructive feedback, organizational session, right? Just to bounce something off of another person. Let me explore some things a little bit. But, he says, other options are also if you can't afford professional therapy, you could talk to, I don't remember what it was, but basically you could talk to a religious leader of some kind, pastoral
Sure,
counseling or something like that.
sure.
And then, friends, family, and so on. But yeah, I'm totally on board. Agree with that mental maintenance model as well. Just have to have the insurance companies, whatever, someday
Right.
foot that
Yeah.
bill.
Yeah. When we're still struggling with like, the standard healthcare stuff, it's difficult
Yeah,
to, yeah, but no, for all the more reason that we need to fix those things, and we need to think of not only ourselves, but we need to
right.
think of
Yeah,
ourselves as a part of society, a society that needs an infrastructure to be healthy.
yeah. And remember, what goes around comes around.
Yeah. Yeah. If we really um set up the infrastructure and the institutions to keep us all healthy,
Right,
we would all be better off for it. Like that,
right,
even people that are just solely self-interested, um,
right.
you'd still
Yeah,
be better off.
yeah. It's funny. If this is a drinking game, you'd be like, you have to drink every time I say the phrase, "What goes around comes around." So there'd be a few shots there already, like probably 3 or 4.
Yeah, yeah, we'd be feeling all right.
Yeah. You have to say it again. Third time, people. That's how the brain works. All right. Principle 4: look out for lopsided development.
Mhm,
And so this kind of ties into that multiple goal thing, but basically that a healthy personality has that flexibility to switch between various different things that you are aspiring towards, or as the
mhm,
book puts it, you're striving for, in a manner that's positive, productive, constructive, and and that way you are truly being a whole person. So, like for myself, um, I try to make sure that I make health something I support behaviorally. So I'm developing the health aspect, but I'm also developing other aspects as well, such as the mind, through these
mhm,
kinds of community connections and like I said, the technological certification that I mentioned earlier. So it's like I'm growing in these different ways, and I'm sharing what I learn, and then I'm reaching out through my network to make sure people know that I am here so that I can help, and that I know that through the community we'll be able to be stronger together. Tribe, evolution.
right.
We we got here, we got this far in evolution by working together. So let's keep going, or maybe make up for some lost growth there on the community and tribe.
I
You
like
know,
it.
and beyond tribalism, but
Right.
the big picture.
I remember one of the examples in the book of like a sort of lopsided development was he was talking about some of the uh, sort of more horrific figures in history. And he's like, well, these people
Nice.
felt a strong sense of purpose,
That's a
um,
good point.
but they didn't have the layers underneath that sense of purpose to support it in a
Right.
healthy way. So they were very driven, and motivated.
Yeah.
And they
Pretty
get
sure he
terrible.
mentioned, yeah. Was it
Yeah.
Mussolini or Hitler? Like one of the common ones got
Oh,
hit.
yeah,
Yeah.
he mentioned a number of figures that
Yeah.
we probably don't want to be like.
Yeah.
We probably
Yeah.
don't want to follow in their footsteps.
All right. Yeah. So unless there's anything more about that one, we'll move on to the next one.
I think we're good.
All right. Principle 5. Create the best version of yourself. I feel like I've said that already. Not sure.
Seems like an
But
obvious one, but
well, what's interesting, I think the difference here is you mentioned about, how you mentioned about changing your personality through habitual
mhm.
uh, application of things. But it's really, really helpful to not only, like we said, intentionally try to do this and maybe even therapy if possible, or through the community connections and such. Actually change your environment
Right.
and change it in a way that actually has long lasting influences. So
Mhm.
examples he mentions are like job, social roles, which I'm like, social roles? I have to think about that. Relationship partners, adopting a new identity, even. So I'm like, okay, there's some stuff I need to uncover there. But yes, I understand changing jobs if one, or maybe roles, like maybe still working for the same company, but like changing what role you're in, right? That kind of a thing. I don't know.
Mhm.
That seems like the obvious thing to me. So yeah, I don't anything to unpack there. I'm like social roles. I'm
Uh
like, so get married? Don't get married?
um so yeah, like in my in my early 20s, I was uh struggling with mental health.
Right.
And struggling with some of those needs, um, the purpose,
Yeah.
and even some of the
Right.
basic stuff like safety, because I was in a pretty economically precarious situation, and that doesn't help.
Right.
I
Right.
saw a recent paper that talked about the relationship between depression, anxiety, and poverty, and that it goes
Right.
both ways. That um, they cause each other. But
This
anyways,
this
uh,
is a picture of my desktop that is being shared inadvertently. Carry on.
um, so yeah, uh, one of the things I did, um, based off of this idea of changing your environment, is
Right.
myself and a friend of mine. We decided we were going to move and
Right.
move to a drastically different situation. And in the process, we were going to spend a couple of months camping out in the woods and just kind of forgetting what the clock says, forgetting what day it is,
Nice.
just reading some books, sitting around a fire, and um, not to be like dramatic or anything, but that decision may have, saved my life.
It's good.
It it really just removing myself from the reality that I was in and placing myself in a different reality. It allowed my mind to relax, and it allowed me to consider what the real range of possibilities were, rather than
Yeah.
just the experience that I felt very stuck in.
Well
And
said.
so that dramatic shift in environment um, was a deep lesson for me, and to this day, like I carry that with me, and it helps me have like a broader perspective about the immediate moment. I don't feel so trapped in it because I know what it's like to escape it, at least temporarily.
Right.
And so yeah, environment. Uh, my uh, academic background is in anthropology, and so through anthropology, you're exposed to all these different ways humans can be humans. Um,
Right.
and genetically, we're more or less the same. We're the same people. Um, but through the influence of environment, uh, we're millions of different people, you know. we're
Right.
we're a billion different versions of ourselves. And so I think we often underestimate the power of environment.
Oh,
And
huge. I mean, like,
yeah.
what was it like? How many, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years, where it's like the brain has been pretty much the same, but it's like the fact that the tools,
Oh yeah.
like we depend upon the earlier tools to make the later tools, and that's, and we've been able to speed up in technology and all that jazz. But like,
Oh yeah.
environment's huge.
Yeah, humans, anatomically modern humans, have been the same for the last, few 100,000 years.
Right.
Um, and even up until like a couple hundred years ago, I mean, obviously there were changes in technology, but nothing compared to the last century. And the last
Right.
century was nothing compared to the last couple of decades. And
Right.
what was that compared to, like, last week or something, to be dramatic? Like,
Sure.
yeah, there's definitely like an accelerating curve to our development. And it's not a biological development. It's a
Right.
cultural development, you know. It's the way we share and construct our world together.
Yeah. Yeah. Together being a key thing. And I'm glad, circling back to like what I had written down and thought about, was the fact that you were introduced to a new normal or an alternate normal.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, yes, it's a part of you. You can remember that. And I was thinking about social roles. So the person that introduced you to that opportunity, right? That was
Hmm.
a leadership act. And
Hmm.
whether a person does it temporarily through one situation or they do it recurring, a person could take on a social role of being a leader or a person who empowers other people.
Hmm.
Where, like, I was basically, it was heavily suggested that I call our community of Finney helps. It's like, you're going to call it Finney helps. And I'm like, yeah, but it's about the we, it's community. It's like, just call it Finney helps. It's nice, it's short, sweet, it's memorable. Um, it's like, oh, okay. But yeah, so then it's like, in that sense, I took on the social role of, I will meet with others and have these community connections and talk about these frameworks. Not this one. This is the joke of needs, where it's like down here, it's like, we'll see if zoom in works. Oh, that didn't work at all. But basically, you saw there for a moment Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is the most base need.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, internet, it's definitely a need, especially in these interesting times. I
Oh,
would say.
absolutely. Like we live in
I think
a
it's gone.
that was
I think it just
there.
gone. Poof.
There you go. That was your moment, everybody.
That was your moment. Wi-Fi.
uh
It's out there in the
yeah,
internet.
of course. We're like we're an interconnected planet now socially. Like memes go around the world, you know.
You indeed.
So yeah, you got to be a part of it.
Okay, so principle 6: strive for growth, not happiness. And I think we touched on this already.
Hmm.
That, yeah, that basically you get out of your own way. Rise above your ego, your a person's ego-ness, right? Your
Yeah,
insecurities, and just like, okay. And you can do that through the help of others, right? Again, it's the we.
and chasing happiness will only deliver temporary happiness, you know. and
Right,
it's and
right.
it's and it probably won't deliver like a more sustainable sense of well-being. uh
And
and
yeah,
well-being's not about being happy 24/7, you know.
right,
Sometimes it's appropriate to not be happy. So
right. And then what's crazy is, and depending upon how long you've grown on this path, you can actually, I mean, you can have inner peace,
mhm.
and you can be, strangely enough, say like, I'm accepting of the reality of the moment. I have inner peace, with respect to that, I don't like it. Like an example a meditation teacher gave is someone said, oh, well, I heard your mom died. How are you? He's like, it sucks,
Yeah.
but I'm okay,
Yeah.
And so he had inner peace,
Hmm.
while of course recognizing the reality of pain that existed there,
Hmm.
without ruminating on it and stoking the fire of that pain. He's just like, okay,
Right.
it is what it is, and I will process this emotion, and I have inner peace.
Yeah. Brilliant.
They do good stuff. All right, principle 7: harness the power of your dark side. Boy, did I reject that mentally when I first came across it. I'm like, the dark side. I recently saw with my family all the Star Wars movies. What are you talking about?
Luke, Luke, come to the dark side.
I'm your father. Have you
Right.
seen the How It Should Have Ended YouTube videos?
No.
Oh, the acronym. If you see, HISHE, that's how it should have ended. Yeah, Google how it should have ended Star Wars. Later, whoever's watching this, you won't be. They do all kinds of movies and stuff. Hilarious. There's this one, spoiler alert, although there's plenty of laughs to have from them. So with respect to, when Darth Vader, here's another spoiler alert, decades ago, Darth Vader said, hey, Luke, I'm your father, right? So ending the how
Wait,
it should
what?
have ended.
What? I'm
You're
sorry.
killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me, Chad. That's a quote. You're killing me, Smalls. That's also a YouTube thing. So it's so funny. Darth Vader says, I'm your father. And Luke's like, no. And he's like, oh, don't be such a crybaby. He's like, he chopped off my hand, though. He's like, ah. And then it's like, Luke, you and I, we could rule the galaxy together. It'd be great. Paraphrasing. Luke's like, does sound pretty sweet. But do I have to join the dark side? He's like, that's how it works. I'm like, no, then I'll never join you. So Luke jumps, right? Darth Vader uses the Force, levitates Luke back up, because he could have done that, right? How it should have ended.
That's an
And,
option. Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, oh, hold on. I didn't say you had a choice in this. And
Oh,
Luke's
jeez.
like, you're the worst dad ever. And Darth Vader's like, you mean I'm the most powerful dad ever? It's great.
That
Anyway.
would kind of be the worst dad ever.
Yeah.
That's
That's in character for Darth Vader.
that's some
But
abusive stuff.
it's animated, it's cartoony, it's super funny.
Okay, I will check that out.
Highly recommend. But what they talk about in harnessing the power of your dark side is just taking in the whole picture. Yes, environment wise, help create good conditions for enabling yourself to have good choices. But you're still going to have moments that invite, aggression, anger, hostility, and stuff's going to happen. I'm not saying the S word, well, the other S word, the cussing one. And, instead of like shutting yourself off from the reality of those pains, it's like, no, okay, here's the reality. And I recognize that there's an opportunity for me to choose an evil path. And I'm going to confront it as opposed to running away from it. Right. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but again, through mindfulness and such, another drinking thing. Like every time I say mindfulness meditation, you got to take a drink, right? By the way, I do not condone people blitzing their brains out and causing brain damage through alcohol abuse. There's a disclaimer. See your doctor. But in those moments of actually being mindful, you can say, I'm not quite the best version of myself, at least I'm not a version of myself where I can effectively communicate without growling at a loved one. Maybe I should say, really want to talk about this. Can we talk about this in about an hour after I've really woken up? Ideally after the shower,
Right.
some food, a little bit of caffeine, because I do drink green tea. And I'm
Yeah.
proud of it. Happy that I do that.
Yeah. Put yourself in a good situation so you can handle
Yeah,
stuff
yeah, absolutely.
to the degree that it's possible.
To
It's
the
not
degree
always
that's
possible. Yeah.
possible. But yeah, embrace the whole self. So that's harness the power of the dark side, which kind of sounds like a marketing term to me, but whatever. All right. Yeah. Oh, so those are the 7 principles. I did promise you an um, ikigai image, right?
Right. Yeah.
So this was in the appendix. It's growth challenge number 17. What is your ikigai? That is I actually YouTubed it. How do you pronounce this? It's like ikigai. Okay, got it. So I don't have like, whoop, I like doing that. So like all I have up so far is where the sailboat came from, because it came from this article written by Scott. He has a blog.
Hmm.
Um, and then of course the stuff we've seen. So I'm going to do something wild. I'm going to click on this link here, see what happens.
Dangerous.
I know, right? I'm living on the wild side. Must be the
Hey,
playfulness.
there you go.
You must be seeing good stuff here. Open a new, that went somewhere I don't know. There,
Hey,
I
look
am
at these
one with the Chrome
skills.
browser.
Right.
Ikigai. I've seen this. So normally I've seen this in the context of like what job/career you're going to do, kind of a thing,
Right.
right? Like ideally you do what you love, but you can get paid for it. So it's like, okay, got my basic needs, got what I love. Yes, you have to do something that the world needs. Ties into clearly what could be paid for. So as you can see, these things overlap. There's a dependency between them. And that sweet spot's right there in the middle. Profession, vocation, passion, mission. Yeah. And you just shoot for that as best as you can. I don't know if anyone is totally bullseye on there.
So my reaction to this, my like gut reaction was, I hesitate because I'm
Yeah.
not sure, um, I want to be paid for, uh, my contributions to, what I believe the
Right.
world needs, or what I think I'm good at, or, what I love. So I had like a hesitation there,
I
especially with the way that, I mean, there's some research that shows that,
sure.
money can actually like, undermine your intrinsic motivation
Mm-hmm.
on particular things, uh,
Yeah.
depending on how it's arranged. So I had like a hesitation on that. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts about that, if you wanna
Well,
you wanna
I'll
try
back
to
you up
talk
on
me
that.
into it, or if you
No,
if
well,
you
first,
if you know what I'm talking about, or
yeah, first, I want to like to your point. So we're talking about extrinsic motivation in the sense of like you normally a person. I don't know. Normally, let me back up here. Ideally, a person is going to do something that is intrinsically motivating. I would
Mhm,
do it even if I was not paid. I enjoy
mhm,
doing it. I like doing it. It's that love you're good at thing, and I know, or at least I sense that this is something that the world needs, right? And
mhm.
if you really know what you're doing, I say that with all due respect to everyone, create a feedback loop so you actually know whether or not you're meeting a need that there, or you can actually like maybe find out what the world needs, and then you could choose one of the things you love doing that actually. So, pro tip.
Hmm.
In terms of what you could be paid for, so yeah, there is the danger of, if I am extrinsically motivated, to your point, research, science has shown that it can potentially take away some of that intrinsicness, because
Hmm.
it's like I think they even did this experiment with kids, right? Where it's just like, okay, this group of kids, you're going to draw and just draw for fun, have fun, and all that jazz. All right, you group of kids, you're going to draw, we're going to pay you. And then later they're like, okay, now we're going to stop paying you. They stop drawing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, or what also happens is they become used to a certain level of payment. And it's like, well, if you want me to keep doing this, you're going to pay me more. Right. And that just
If
keeps building because
if
people
you
get
want
used.
me to keep having fun,
Yeah. Right.
you're gonna have to
But then it
compensate
becomes,
me.
yeah, it's called
Yeah.
hedonistic adaptation is the scientific phrase. Where it's like,
Right.
I got used to this. And then, so just like other things, like in terms of like how to, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but how to not get over, how to help manage depression, I have heard from those who know, or get you through tough spots in life. You can reframe things,
Hmm.
right? And so I've done this in several ways. One is like, okay, pretend you're a hero of your own narrative, etc. And there's a whole other discussion that could be had there. For me, I ran into this
Hmm.
myself. And actually, what's interesting enough is meditation teachers have run into this, and they run into this still a lot. But there's a renaissance happening with meditation, which is very interesting. Uh, some other day we could talk about that. But basically, people are like, okay, I actually want to make this my sole thing that I do.
Hmm.
Because right now, meditation teachers, what they do is, not all of them, but some of them, they're like, they'll take donations, but then they also work a job
Right.
that just so they could survive. And
Right.
then they do the meditation stuff. And yeah, they do take donations, but it's not enough to live on. So in any case, what I did to frame this for me is, just like a car needs fuel, a car needs gas,
Hmm.
I need fuel to make other things happen. And so it's like, okay, if I'm meeting these other needs, if I'm hitting all these other things, then if I have an option between two things, and all this other stuff is satisfied, or at least most of it is satisfied, or so, especially at the very beginning, it was like, or if any of it is satisfied, right? Because it's like, look, I need to stay alive. Then I could pivot as needed. I'm going to need fuel. I'm going to need money. So it's like, in our current situation, I mean, I know that there are people out there, are right or wrong, love it or hate it. People are talking about a universal basic income, where
Hmm.
people are talking about um, meeting a person's basic needs, and then everything on top of that is gravy, so to speak. Right?
Kind of getting you like a rung up Maslow's hierarchy just as a default, which
Yeah. Right.
seems like a good
Yeah.
idea to me.
Yeah. Back to not that. I literally love showing that image. No, I don't.
There we
Um,
are. We take care of your safety there, maybe.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a fact where, and here's the thing too, is just like, if you turn it into I'm not doing this for myself only.
Hmm.
I'm doing it for us. I'm doing it for the bigger us, the
Hmm.
ideally, the whole human family. Where it's like, all right, what do they want me to do? They want me to stay alive. My mission is not done yet. I have my purpose. This goes back to purpose, right?
Right.
It's like, I naturally, through just a natural process of evolution, and being part of that human tribe, etc. It's like my my mission is to help people self-actualize, and then to transcend that self-actualization. in order to do that, I do need to keep the boat afloat, and
You got to
I
pay
need
rent.
the money. So show me the money.
Yeah, no, and I
Yeah,
mean there is a I mean there is just a practical consideration there. If you don't meet your basic needs, you can't really engage with the rest of it.
right,
Uh, so yeah, so I get it. Um, and at the same
right.
time, I just wanted to point out that like I do feel conflict whenever I see things like
Sure.
that because because I don't because I feel like there's and it's not anyone's fault, but I do feel like there
Right.
is a contradiction there in the way that we've arranged society, and it
Yeah.
does
This.
make it
Yeah.
it does make it more difficult for us to reach those higher levels. And so yeah, yeah,
Well. Yeah.
like you mentioned, there's ideas about how to take care of that, and man, am I excited about them because we might take some steps towards that, and if we do
Right.
that, we're in a whole different world, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, a lot more of
Yeah.
us are feeling that purpose and the love and connection and whatnot, you know.
Yeah. On that note of, because there's the natural fear of, well, if we don't have people work for money to stay alive, what if they aren't motivated enough to do anything at all, right? And things of that
Yeah,
nature. I just want to point out real quick that there are more core drives, human core drives of motivation beyond avoiding the loss of your life, which is core drive 8 in the octalysis model. We have all these other things, which we're not going to get into, but yeah, that calling, that purpose, you know, it's called epic meaning and accomplishment, or excuse me, epic meaning. Sorry. And then you have all these other ones: accomplishment, empowerment of creativity, and so on. All right. So can you hear me still?
yeah, I think we had a little glitch there, but we're good
We
now.
we we did have a glitch. We have been talking for over 2 hours probably. So it's been a fantastic conversation. I was like, I don't know if my batteries are dying, but
Yeah, man, I had a fantastic time. And once again, thank you for recommending the book because I've enjoyed it twice now, and it's in my library now, and I anticipate enjoying it at least a few more times. So
yeah, it's amazing. You know, had someone said, okay, now we're going to talk 2 hours about this book, I never would have thought it possible. But it's like we covered probably half of it,
oh yeah, yeah,
right?
it is, and it's not the biggest book, but
Right,
it's thick in, it's dense, it's rich.
right.
So
Yes,
yeah, there's a lot in there.
it's powerful. it's it's uh it's wisdom distilled. But yeah, I'm going to check out the
Mhm.
podcast like you had mentioned. That you said it was called the Psychology Podcast.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited about looking into that as well. Because
Tell you what, yeah,
our friend Scott is like
yeah, our friend Scott.
he's one of my figures I want to look into now. I'm
Yeah,
excited what else I can learn from him.
yeah, yeah, me too. And I'll tell you what, not to make a competition out of it, but the first one that finds the URL wins, shoots it off to the other one. We'll make sure it's in the YouTube description.
I'll probably just let you win. I'm not a very competitive person. uh,
Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. It
I
depends.
was I was that kid. Whenever people are like first one to touch the tree, I'm like bye.
Yeah,
You
pretty
go ahead.
chill.
Yeah, I'm not a very competitive person by nature. At least I don't know. Most of the time, I'm sure I can get like, I'm sure someone can arouse that.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I think we had it somewhat about competition. Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
We have so many conversations we could have that would be beneficial to all, including us.
right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, chat.
Oh man, I had a great time. Thanks.
Ditto. All right. Till we meet again. Bye bye.